Welcome to episode 115 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast, and a happy National Preparedness Week, because that's a thing. We're recording on May the 2nd, the first day of Preparedness Week, 2021. My name's Eric, or according to the show notes, Erica, and I'm the host of the show, based in Southern Ontario. I'm a hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and computer geek. As a first responder, witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events, started a small preparedness company to help people get prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
My name is Ian. I live on Vancouver Island. I'm a student in preparedness, target shooter. Aim is optional, and my farm's designated mediocre handyman. I just find that if you shoot at something, and whatever you hit, you just call the target, you're always on target.
Accuracy by saturation, spray and pray.
Yeah, and that's pretty much the way it works, right?
Yeah, safety, don't worry about it.
And you know, if in doubt, you hear a noise in the bush, just shoot at it, right?
Exactly. That's exactly how it works.
I can't believe YouTube keeps us.
I'm Alan. I'm a safety trainer, although I won't admit that in front of Ian. First responder, security expert, overall safety nerd.
I'm Jeff. I'm based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, soon-to-be ham radio operator, and just general overall handyman.
Now that you've announced that publicly, according to this show's track record, you have a year to complete that.
Yep. It's true.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So get cracking.
If you want to support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, please buy some swag. We have both these super cool Prepper Podcast t-shirt in black and green, and the even cooler tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help to keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
And if you're enjoying the show, please take a few minutes to like us on Facebook and submit a review on iTunes. We also want your feedback, good, bad, or whatever. Or just if there's a topic you want us to cover, email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some high-frequency content for you in this episode. Yes, I changed it. We're going to start off with some preparedness-related news articles. Next, we'll let you know what we've done for our preparedness since the last episode. Then we're going to get into the main topic, VHF and UHF basics, because you can just never have too much ham radio.
Well, as mentioned at the top of the show, this is National Preparedness Week, and a great place to start on information is I can't believe I'm saying this, the government's website, getprepared.gc.ca. Despite the fact that it's a government website, it actually has a lot of great information about the basics to keep yourself handy, keep yourself healthy for 72 hours, if not longer. Another great resource is Rapid Survival.
Well,
sure.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day. So I guess if you give the government and drones enough time at the desk, sooner or later they'll, like 1,000 monkeys typing, on a typewriter, sooner or later they can put out something that's good, right?
It's true.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. All right, as for myself, because the people involved clearly never watched the Terminator, there's an article here on defenseone.com that mentions the fact that the Army is exploring equipping robots with living muscle tissue to be more efficient.
What could go wrong?
RoboCop. RoboCop.
Yeah, maybe RoboCop. Peter Weller was good at that, I guess. But they're actually saying that basically they can't reproduce the efficiency of human muscle when it comes to energy usage and everything else. And so they've decided to try and see if they could make, cyborgs, for lack of a better term, but more machine than human. But still, is any cyborg a good cyborg? I don't know.
Human enhanced robots, is that somehow better than robotic enhanced humans?
It's just something we don't need right now.
Yeah, it is.
What was the Jeff Goldblum line? Sometimes they're so busy wondering about whether they could do it, they didn't stop to think whether or not they should do it.
Yeah, no, it's because it's this year and it's they're just trying to outdo each other every month. It seems. I don't know. It just seems bad.
Who had half human cyborgs on their 2021 bingo card?
Exactly. So the other one, not as menacing, but still you can see our future in the US's future, because basically on theverge.com they have a article mentioning the fact that the FAA is changing the remote rules for drones. So basically what's going to require you to have is a remote ID that's GPS tracked live on the internet at all times when you're flying your drone. So not only radar controllers, but the average Joe public can see where you personally are flying your drone with your address and your drone type. And it's recorded forever, of course. Not just if anything goes wrong, but also just to see who's flying how much, where, and when, and everything else. So
this doesn't seem like a very good idea.
I see nothing wrong with it. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, and the best part is your old drones that don't have this software fix, which might just be a software fix or a hardware fix, maybe. You won't be able to fly them anymore. So I guess they're going to make them all obsolete as of next year.
Is that where the cyborgs?
I, for one, welcome our new overlord.
Yeah, just seems a touch over controlling for what should be a hobby. But anyway,
hey, government gets involved, right?
Yeah, make things better.
Yep. All right, so I've got an article here in regards to Canada not being ready for the shutdown of Line 5. So the governor of Michigan intends to shut down Enbridge's Line number 5 pipeline. So that's the line that brings oil that creates half of the gasoline, diesel, propane, jet fuel, all that good stuff to Ontario and Quebec. So that's not good. That's going to be at a cost of about 540,000 barrels of oil a day. That's going to suck.
Cool.
We had supplied Ontario and Quebec with petroleum products in Western Canada.
You know,
With their own borders.
it's almost as if we had an opportunity to do that and we didn't take that opportunity.
Huh.
It's shocking.
And if we learned anything from last year, we know that rail transportation of propane is very reliable too, right? And not subject to supply disruptions.
No. Just checking with Quebec about that. Yeah.
and can we also just for the sake of posterity mention that even the travel of crude and bitumen is also completely safe, and the people of Lac-Mégantic in Quebec will attest to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're all for it, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's
so
going to be interesting.
Yeah, the best part is I'm actually surprised how little press coverage this has gotten. This is like a month ago, and they're like, no big deal.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
I mean, yes,
nothing to see here.
It helps you meet carbon emissions targets by not having people with the ability to drive because they have no gas, but it's not going to not create shortages. So, I don't know.
That worked well in Venezuela, didn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, sure did. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff?
So I know we really don't like to talk politics too much, but we're going to talk a bit of politics because it could apply to us or anybody else, which of course is our government's intent to censor the internet or censor free speech through Bill C-10. CTV News had a bit of an article about it. And it says the Heritage Committee won't reverse any changes despite public outcry. Should we be shocked? I think, at least from my end of it, a lot of people are saying, it's the censor hate speech. Well, we already have laws for that. It's already in the criminal code for hate speech. So why do we need another? And I can see, as everybody I'm sure is well aware, if you give the government an inch, they're going to take 100 miles. So I can see where potentially this could impact certain ways of communicating kind of in the dark, if you want, such as the signal, texting and that's all encrypted and everything, where the government could say, well, you know what, that's dangerous and we need to protect people's safety. So therefore, we're going to make all of those encrypted type things illegal, or we're going to shut them down and you have to communicate on a way that we can read it. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, or they probably might not like certain podcasts and just decide to shut them down arbitrarily or order.
Well, I wasn't going to go down that rabbit hole, but that certainly crossed my mind too. Of, and maybe even other things like, and I doubt they would, because ham radios do a lot of good things for communities, and these areas are all of that. But a lot of preppers are ham operators, and there's a lot of countries that, such as, of course, the countries that don't allow or have these internet censors like North Korea, Russia, China, they don't really have ham either. So,
yeah, it's definitely something to pay attention to, because as soon as they want to start filtering stuff, like you said, give them an inch, they'll take a mile, right?
Well, and again, it's amazing how little press coverage this is getting.
Yeah.
When you think the press would be all over it about free speech and journalism and, getting the truth out and stuff, but they're just like, nope.
Yep.
So
No, there's no free speech in the media. The government pays them. It's not free.
are you saying we have state-sponsored media in this country?
Wait a minute.
Come on.
Did I just say that again?
A company that's indebted to the government for $1 billion a year is only going to put out and talk about what the government wants them to say. Shut the
I
front
know,
door.
bad slap my hand.
Yeah. There's too polite
All
to
right.
call it Pravda, so anyway,
Shall we move into what we've done lately for preps?
go for it.
So for myself, rotated the fuel stock. So wanted to get ahead of that whole Line 5 shutdown, have some fresh fuel all ready to go. So did that. And besides that, I've been painting the house because we got some quotes to have someone else come and do it. And no, just no.
You know, it's one of those things where, unlike oil changes, it's actually worth your while to do it because not just the ease of doing it, but just the markup that the people charge you for their quote unquote labor. It's insane.
Yeah, it's nuts. Absolutely nuts. So been doing that.
All right. Well, that's for myself. Kind of the same thing. A lot of home repair. Rainy season is over, so we're demossing and getting the algae off everything, including my truck. Believe it or not, there's actually like algae growing around the windows and stuff. Crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
shouldn't drive it underwater.
No, I really shouldn't, but that's what I was doing all winter, it seems. So, yeah, a lot of home repair and stuff like that going on. I did start watching some advanced ham course training videos, but holy doodle, it's hard to keep concentrating on those ones.
Nap time.
I'm sorry. Was that Holy Doodle?
Yeah, well, I'm
Is that
trying
what
to
you said?
clean this day. Yeah, I did. Hey, I got away with an F-bomb last week, and nobody even edited it out, so...
Yeah, I don't edit those out.
Anyway, so, yeah.
We
no, I am
don't censor.
I am a nerd. Yeah, so I watched the advanced hand training videos, and I cannot get through more than 10 minutes without needing a break. So I'm good. It's going to be a while. Let's see here. Did some wood stacking. I like just like some other people here as well. Bagged up some rice. We got at the superstore on a good deal because the price of rice is going up and rice crop failures everywhere. So we figured we'd grab a couple extra bags. I received my 12-volt power source in the mail. I don't know if you guys can see it on the old interwebs here, but
Oh,
there it
yeah.
is.
That
Yay.
looks oddly familiar.
It does look just like something Eric had,
fancy.
yeah. And then so it's pretty cool. I measured it before I hooked anything up to it and made sure it was like not putting out like 10,000 volts, but yeah,
Possibility.
yeah. So hooked up the old QIT there, the one that's going to go in the truck, and started programming it and playing with it a little more. Because before I was using a battery, and like 2 minutes into it, the battery would like go below voltage and then shut off the radio, and it was horrible because it's an old worn out battery. So that was good. So I got to play with that, and the range and clarity is fantastic compared to the old Balfangs, which is a nice change. See here, ordered some MIKLOR bags and O2 absorbers. Because of the rice usage, I used up the last of my big bags, so I had to get some more of those. Bought a truck antenna mount from a local supplier, Island Communications, and they were fantastic. They had the right year, model, make, everything for the antenna mount, so that was good. And of course, I had to watch some videos to figure out how to get the antenna and power stuff through the firewall, because that's not never as easy as you think, right?
Come on, it's always easy. That's the easiest part.
We just drill randomly, right? Just start.
Yeah,
pushing.
you just guess. Yeah, just whatever. There's nothing important.
Big
behind it.
half-inch holes, a whole series of them, and then you get your choice.
Yeah, I
The
figure it's
firewall's
just-
not there for any reason except the drill through.
That's right. And if you hit wires, you just back it out and then go into the next half an
Yeah,
inch
it's
over.
fine.
Or something.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Did I talk about the ammo cans last week from Princess Auto?
Yep.
Yeah, they were
So
on
last week or
sale.
the week before, yeah.
Yeah, so they showed up anyway. But I am going to put one to work as a portable power station project. So with USB outlets and a battery and a solar hookup and everything else. So I'm going to have like a portable ammo can power supply.
That's badass.
So that'll go down the road. That's not even close to even. I haven't even ordered the parts for it yet, but that's going to start one of those. See here, I'm going to take another metal one and swap it out with a plastic one I got and do a mini Faraday cage because I'm reading 1 second after and paranoia.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so that's another project that's going to have to come to fruition. I'll put some pictures on that one. Let's see here. So I redid my bug out bag for the seasonal rotation. So I changed out the rain gear for the warm weather stuff. A couple other just checked to make sure what I was missing and changed out the food that was in it and a couple other things, but just made sure it was like part of that twice a year check, just like my fire extinguishers and smoke detectors and everything else.
How about your carbon monoxide alarms?
Beat me to it.
Those are part of the process with the fire extinguisher and fire alarms and everything else. They all get checked. So absolutely.
Don't forget the carbon monoxide detector.
As I think you just said. Yeah. But anyways, that's pretty much it for me.
And I did some food prep, did my once a month run to Costco. And so I did some food prep, rotated my fuel stock and filled my jerry cans again because of that line 5 issue. Did some of my routine maintenance on some of my equipment, my generator, my lawnmower, my snowblower, oil changes, new spark plugs, etc. And like Ian, I also did more wood. I got another dump trailer load showed up in my driveway unexpectedly, so I'm still working at it.
I love how that just shows up randomly.
Usually you got to pay extra for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a little wood fairy that drops off stuff, or gifts from the forest or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good.
There you go.
I finally got around to installing the radio in my truck this weekend, as in earlier today. Went back and forth with a couple of different antennas and a couple of different mounts. Finally ended up with a magnetic antenna base and discovered that the hood of my truck is aluminum. So now I'm looking for a different place to mount my antenna, because it turns out there isn't like a bolt-on antenna base that I can find that's commercially made for this particular antenna. I'm not willing to buy a new antenna just because I've got all of these extra ones sitting around now. So I'm coming up with a workaround that I think is going to go down kind of under the cab and back in through the firewall. I have a grommet available in my firewall, so that it's intended for this. It's sitting right there, ready to go. But the radio does work. I actually changed the installation a little bit because I was going to put it. I think Eric, we were talking about it. I was going to put it on a relay so that when I turn the key on, it would power the radio. I decided to go direct off the power source, with the theory that if I ever lost my key and I lost my cell phone, I could still run my radio, but it's on a switch, so I can leave it off except when I need it.
Yeah, that works too. Yeah,
because I have, it's a new enough vehicle that it has a fobic, but there's still a mechanical key to unlock the door. So the mechanical key is zip tied in a secure place under the vehicle. If I ever need it, I can just get under there, rip off the zip tie, unlock the door. That gets me into the truck. But if I have, lost my keys in the woods, then at least I can radio for help. So that was my theory behind that. So even if I can't start the truck, I can still make use of the radio.
And now if I want to take your truck for a joyride, I know where a spare key is.
It won't start it. It'll get you in the cab, and you're welcome to the Kleenexes and the box of masks that are in there. Please leave me the first aid kit though. But otherwise,
might take the radio.
Yeah, I mean, go for it. It's it's not like it was a good one or anything. I got it from Rapid Survival.
That's fired.
Touche.
So that was my day. I spent the day on the driveway pulling wires and making connections and getting my radio almost set up. And now I need to learn how to program it, which is why we're here.
I just thought of a new advertising slogan for Eric: Rapid Survival, the wish.com of Canada.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
Right. Well,
please talk to me after the show.
We had a great run. 115
we had
episodes.
115 episodes is pretty good. So currently accepting applications.
Yeah.
So we're going to take applications to replace Ian.
Yeah.
So if you can email your resumes into feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. And and next week we should have a new Ian.
And 90% of success is just showing up. So pretty much the first person that applies will get the job. And
at this point, anybody will be better than you.
That's how I got here.
Yeah, I deserve that. That's all good.
All right, let's move into the main topic, shall we?
All right. So why are we talking about VHF UHF besides the fact that I wanted to? There's lots of reasons, I guess, because we all talk about basics of hams and whys, right? But nobody really goes on a deep dive on particular uses and specifics on them, right?
No, it's obviously a very popular topic because everybody keeps asking. So,
well, although there's no user feedback today so far, which is really unusual.
I was actually just going to ask, do we have the chats open or something? Because we usually have at least a few comments up, and maybe it's just a beautiful night and nobody's listening to us live.
Well, we've got 10 people watching, nobody talking.
All right,
maybe they're all on UHF VHF.
Could be. All right, so first of all, let's get down to the basics. What defines VHF and UHF, Eric?
So VHF, UHF, very high frequency, and wait for it. Is everybody ready? Ultra high frequency.
I think we should change that. We should petition to change that to uber high frequency.
I think we should change it to uber high frequency. Yeah, that'd be good.
Not just for TV anymore. It turns out.
No.
All right, yeah. So VHF, for the people that haven't got their ham license yet, is basically measured in megahertz, and it is 144 to 148 megahertz. It's also called the 2 meter band because they like to make things confusing.
It's true.
Or so. Put it in kind of perspective, it's kind of just above what the airplanes use and well below what something like your cordless phone would use. But it's kind of just, it's meant for like medium distance communications more than anything else. The UHF is a little higher up the scale. It's 430 to 450 megahertz. Please tell me I didn't get that wrong. And
right
yeah, they also call it the 70 centimeter band because, again, confusion. So what's
that took me the longest time to get the handle on. It was just why?
Yeah, can't they just like?
I still haven't got it, and I'm still figuring it out.
And you will find when you get chatting on the airwaves that pretty much every ham only will refer to it as 2 meter, 70 centimeter. It's just the way it is.
It's cachet, like using the term 7.3.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't use 0.7 meter and keep it even the same unit of measurement.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, and acronyms. Don't get me started on acronyms.
No. Oh, God, no.
But anyway, okay. No. So with a VHF, UHF, obviously the utility of these things is for medium-range communication, short-range communication in some cases. But the handy-talkies, or HTs, as they like to call them, again, more acronyms. If you're going to get picked between the two, I guess VHF will theoretically give you a longer range. But the UHF will be much clearer than VHF, but yet it's kind of limited to a closer range depending on a bunch of factors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so the fun stuff with VHF, it's not strongly reflected by the atmosphere, so it's not easily bendable, if you want to think of it that way. So it can't be transmitted beyond the horizon, which takes a little bit of time to get your head wrapped around. But so beyond the horizon is not a thing. It's short range, like Ian said. It's line of sight communication. It's the best way to think of it. If you can see it, then you can transmit to it. But remember, the horizon kind of bends a little bit as well. So it's
if you believe that the Earth isn't flat, I suppose.
Well, for you flat earthers out there, fine. Send me some hate mail. Feedback at pepperpodcast.ca, and you can just send your signal across the world. Go for it.
Yes. If you want proof positive the world is indeed curved, you could use the formula as discussed here. For line of sight, it's actually because it does stick a little bit to the Earth, but not really. It doesn't really bend to the Earth, but on a very, very slight amount it does, in which case it's slightly better than actual visual line of sight. So if you take your height above ground, or the height of your antenna above ground, and go with 1.23 times the square root of your altitude above ground, and you will get the basically miles of range for your antenna.
And, so our live viewers just dropped the 0.
Yep, I got you, nerd. But it gets better. If you're up high and the other person's up higher, well, then obviously you get over that curve a little better, and you're going to get even further distance. For example, somebody I may know, when he's cruising around at 35,000 feet or whatever, and you're using VHF, you can actually get about 300 miles, versus some people that are on the ground might get 2 or 3 miles, right? And so it just, obviously, it's huge. And of course, limitations. When you think about it, with this thing, you can still actually contact the International Space Station. So if you can see it, you can pretty much transmit to it, which is good.
Yeah. That's kind of neat when you start kind of looking around at your landscape and realizing where certain repeaters are or certain areas you want to talk to. Then you kind of start figuring out, where you can transmit to, and then you start thinking about it as you're looking around.
Altitude from ground in what unit of measurement?
There you go. Sorry, altitude of ground in feet. So if you're actually like 9 feet up, take 3 times 1.23. There's your range in miles.
Excellent.
And so it's pretty simple like that. Oh, and Darren G mentions that he bought a Midland radio from Bass Pro Shop today. He was actually watching my posts, I guess. So that's good. Play around. It's a good start. And Terry does mention that he's here as well.
Well, it's good to know that there are actually people out there listening.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's see here. So what else we need to talk about? Obstacles. If there's something in your way, and even though it's within a line of sight range based on your calculations, for example, I've got a repeater that's only 2.8 miles from me, and I cannot reach it no matter what from my house. But if I go like half a mile that way, sure enough, I can, because there's a little lump of land in front of us, between the two of us anyway. And there is actually some websites you can figure stuff out as far as obstacles go if you really want to get nerdy with it. But basically just give it a try is probably the easiest way.
Yeah, trial and error is usually the best way to figure it out.
Oh, yeah. Cool. So as far as that goes, if we want to get around the obstacle issue, there's something we can use called a repeater. Now we've mentioned repeaters a couple times, and what exactly are repeaters, Eric?
So repeater is exactly as it sounds. It's a device that repeats your signal. So you set your radio up to transmit to the repeater. The repeater takes your signal, repeats it out, and normally it's a more powerful device that's hooked up on a proper transmission tower. It has a good line of sight to all kinds of other areas, and it's got a good amount of power usually, and it just literally repeats your signal out.
So it's kind of like one of those hollerback girls in the rap videos. No, okay, maybe not.
So catch us next week on
yeah, okay.
Yeah. YouTube has to kick us off after that one.
So since we have a repeater, why do we need? Why can't we just talk unlimited on them?
Unlimited on the repeaters?
Yeah, why don't we just blab our head off?
Because other people get mad. They're usually communal things. So
yeah,
who's in charge of repeaters?
So. As far as who runs the repeaters, most likely it's going to be your local ham radio club will sponsor a repeater and maintain it and make sure it runs and operates efficiently. But if you have your advanced level certification in Canada, then you can also set up and maintain your own repeater. But normally it's going to be the ham radio clubs, or you're going to find some high schools or colleges that also sponsor and run some as well. But you can as well with your advanced, like I said.
So for those of us, probably half the panel here, old enough to remember party lines, it's
yes.
it is a thing. Like, I mean, so everybody's listening, everybody can hear you. The repeater I get best, like I said, is 57 miles away because it's just at the top of a mountain towards Vancouver. But there's 3 million potential listeners there. So yeah, it's a thing. And the way the repeater works, of course, you can actually still transmit and yet hear it at the same time because it's actually transmitting at one frequency and you're receiving it on another frequency, so it's actually kind of a big loopy circle, depending on how the repeater is set up and how your handy-talkie set up. It's actually a pretty slick operation.
I believe the answer loopy circle is in the exam.
Yeah, that's tech talk.
Yes, very much so.
When you get to be as cool as us.
Yeah.
Is it the loopy circle on the left of the thingy or on the right of the thingy?
No,
that's in the center of the thingamajobber.
The swirly thing.
Yeah. It's connected to your wristwatch.
Go to the shoulder thing that goes up.
Yeah. Come
here for that thing. Like, come on, you know what it is.
Yeah. Come here for more professional advice. Yeah. Canadian Prepper Podcast. What else can we do with the repeater, Eric?
So with the repeater, depending on what kind of things are hooked up to it, you'll notice if you're looking in Repeater Book or various internet sources, you'll see things like Echolink, IRLP, those sort of things. So those are internet-based connections to the repeaters. So you can, while operating your radio, punch in a node number for a different IRLP radio, and then it will connect to that repeater as well. So then you can repeat out to any repeater in the world, depending on what node you punch in. Echolink is only phone-based, so if you have an Android or iPhone, you can get the app, and you can log into the repeaters via the app and then transmit out across that app as well. My
personal favorite, some of them are set up for phone patches.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically you can actually use it as a phone. Of course, everybody's listening, but in an emergency or whatever, you had to make a phone call for a tow truck, or for a new host, or whatever you might need, just so you can actually, make a phone
Stand
patch.
by, I'll call now for a new host.
Yeah, let me give that a try. So, which is actually kind of cool. So, if you are in the bush but within range of a repeater, but no cell service, there is an option there to make a phone call if required via your handy-talkie, which is kind of a cool thing. It's something that doesn't really mention that much anymore, and I don't really know why people don't push it more because it's a huge benefit, right?
Oh yeah, I don't know if maybe the repeaters just aren't as hooked up to that anymore as they used to be.
Yeah, I mean, like some of them specify phone patch, some don't, but and I don't know what kind of a long distance thing they have to worry about. But I mean, now everybody has pretty much unlimited long distance anyway, so I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess it's the owner of the repeater that'd have to be on the hook for that.
Yeah, it would be. Same as the owner of the repeaters on the hook for the internet service when you're using one of those internet connected things. But yeah.
Cool. So with these repeaters, because they extend the range so much, like for example, because of that repeater over in Vancouver there, I can actually reach a guy over in a place called Hope, which is probably about 100 miles away now because he's on the other side of the mountain, other side of the valley. Yeah, great phone range there, but yeah, I guess they're just, what was I trying to get at there? They're very, very utilitarian. They work great, but how much do they cost?
Well, it depends on how much you want to spend.
Yeah. Obviously, I think $1,500 would be the absolute minimum if you want to just get a basic radio repeater.
Yeah,
right?
you can get some used repeaters. A lot of clubs will sell off their old equipment when they're replacing it. So yeah, you can find old used repeaters for $1,500 to $2,000. It all depends on how much you want to spend, and you can set up a repeater with a couple bail fangs as well if you wanted.
There's YouTube videos on. Yeah, I've seen YouTube videos on that where they kind of have like a temporary powered kind of repeater set for the bow fang, unless they're both sitting in a charger. I suppose that would work too. But assuming the power goes out with the repeater, there's standby power for some of these, are there?
Yeah, that's that's up to the person that sets the repeater up to have some form of battery backup for them, and it's the same as you would do for your house or anywhere else you want to power in a power outage. It depends again how much you want to spend and what kind of generator you want to run. And what kind of setup you want, but a lot of the ones that I've seen are just on your regular uninterruptible power supplies, so they'll run for maybe an hour or so, and then that's it.
Cool. I got to talk about. I had to use the word tactical somewhere in here just to keep some listeners interested. So
tactical repeater. Yeah.
The tactical benefit of a repeater, or just regular handy talkies, for example. Obviously, when power's out. And people's cell phone service is out, like Rogers last week. These still work. Short range communication, it's still nice and clear. If you can see the person, you can talk to them. So it might just be across, they might be on a boat, they might be across the water, they might be in the air, who knows? But there is obviously a benefit to having independent communications that nobody can turn off on you, unless there's an EMP, I suppose. But
that's where your Faraday cage comes in.
Yeah, that's right. You gotta build one of those Faraday boxes or something like that. But it did come up as a question. I just want to mention it for the listeners here. So people using like the Midland FRS walkie-talkies, somebody has mentioned about setting up a repeater that works on those frequencies. Is that a thing?
So repeaters on the FRS frequencies is actually prohibited in Canada. So you can't do that, unfortunately. Government steps in.
But it's technically possible.
Is it possible? Absolutely. Well, you can repeat any radio signal, but are you allowed to repeat FRS? No. Can you repeat FRS? Well, of course you can.
Yeah.
But just not allowed to.
Just a thought. Yeah, no, I just said a random question from a guy. So, yeah. And let's see. As far as how the repeaters actually work, can you talk about the frequency thing?
Just about programming them in?
Yeah, well, just like about the transmit receive frequency and the offset and all that stuff.
Yeah. So that was probably the biggest thing that confused the heck out of me when I first started doing the ham radio thing, is you'll look at your list of repeaters and all you're going to see is one frequency listed usually, and then you'll see like a plus minus 0.6 or a plus minus 0.5. And for the longest time I sat and I looked at it. I'm like, okay, I know that I'm going to transmit on one frequency. I'm going to listen on the other, but like where's my second frequency? So what that's actually telling you is when you read out the first frequency listed, that's the frequency you're going to be listening on. So that's your receive frequency. And then your plus minus is actually the offset. So it's going to minus or plus 0.6 or 0.5 to the frequency you've put in to listen to. And every time you key the mic to talk, then it either pluses or minuses depending on the offset that's set for that repeater. And you're transmitting on that offset. So
that's plus or minus 5 and 6 megahertz, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And yeah, they don't actually specify anywhere about which one's the transmit, which one's the receive frequency. No. And yeah, I found that a little bit confusing as well. Is there an industry convention like why they go plus or minus? Like, does it depend on the frequency band, or just?
I think it depends on the setup in the area, but I could be wrong on that because I've seen it just traveling the province. I've seen some do -6, some do +5, some do +6, some do -5. So I'm not 100% sure if it's an industry standard thing or just by choice to help rule out interference or just usage in the area.
I was going to say that may be a thing that you just touched on there, Rick, is the interference. If, repeaters are fairly strong. So if you have every repeater on one frequency and +5, you're going to get just all that interference. So
yeah.
Awesome. So can you just kind of do a quick rundown on how you would set up your radio to do like a transmit ±5, 6?
Tricky question because I don't know what kind of radio you're running with, but most will have that offset, or it'll either be called offset, it'll be called a shift. Kevin in the live chat brings up a great point that CHIRP is great for programming handhelds because it does a lot of the work for you.
We're getting there, Kevin.
We're getting there, Kevin. So yeah, stop watching ahead, Kevin. So yeah, it's either you're looking for shift or offset or some kind of wording like that in your programming, and then you'd simply put in 0.6, 0.5, and then plus minus. We'll accept your apology, Kevin.
Hey, Kevin, you're the new guest host. You're the new host. Apparently, we need to replace him.
Yeah. And so,
I guess we should be nice already. So we should be nice to the listeners. Yes.
And so now we got one less listener now, so that's good. Less competition for me. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I will point out one thing. Some radios I've noticed now as well will do the automatic shift detection. So, for example, the TYT that I have here will detect either plus or minus 5 or 6, and it'll try to do it for you. It's not always 100% correct, but you may already have that availability in your radio. So, this is where it comes to reading the manual, which I know everybody hates to do, but
hey, when all else fails, read the instructions.
Yeah, and because the UV5R is written in the finest grammatically correct English, there's a group of guys that ran a site called MIKLOR that dedicated multiple hours of volunteer time putting together a proper UV5R user's guide in North American English, and it's fantastic. So at MIKLOR.com, you can find a bunch of stuff there. There's also a CHIRP Beginner's Guide I put in the show notes at danplanet.com, and balfrangradio.ca as a tertiary thing. But for the most part, MIKLOR is the way to go, and it'll definitely tell you how to set up your radio if you don't have software to do it.
It's a fantastic document if you're starting out with a Baofeng. Even if you don't have the 5R, if you have a different variant like UV82 or something like that, most of the menus are the same. I know, shocking, different make or different model number, but same operating.
Well, that and you go to MIKLOR and you just pick your radio, and then it goes to everything available for that radio as far as software and manuals and everything else. It's pretty fantastic.
Very handy site.
Yeah. So as Kevin mentioned, there is a way around all this. It's called CHIRP, which is a piece of software available as freeware on the internet. Any idea the origins of CHIRP?
Somebody got really cranky with trying to have it program a bunch of radios manually, and so they wrote a program to do it. And I mean, I've got it open right now. It's just a CSV. Like it's a really basic. It's essentially just fancy Excel that somehow knows how to write to your radio. And I imagine that most radios operate on the same basic concept of programming.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is. It's a spreadsheet glorified, but I mean, it seems to work well. Like for the most part, it gets the plus or minus offset right for all these repeaters. So if I just type in the identifier and the frequency, it seems to know which one to do, and I'd say 95% of the time it's correct. And that could be an updating of the actual, frequency designator too, right?
Could be, yeah.
But
we should mention too, before we get too deep into CHIRP, is the CTCSS, because you're going to see that as well when you're programming your radio.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, I know. We're getting into all kinds of acronyms. This is great. We're still at 10 live watchers, so that's good, or live viewers. So I'll make this quick.
What does it stand for?
Haha, Continuous Tone Coded Squelch System.
You notice you had to look over at his screen before you said
yes, that. I'm not going to memorize what it stands for. Come on, of course I wrote it out.
I think I had 3 out of 5, but anyway.
Yeah, hey. It is what it is. I wrote it out. So you're going to see those as well when you see repeaters listed for programming into your radio. And the easiest way to understand what that is it's a key for the repeater. So it allows you into the repeater. It lets you listen to what's going on. If you don't have that, you're not going to hear anything. But to throw in more confusion, not all repeaters require it. So it's a fun. Most that I've seen do. Right. And you'll see in the various regions that you're in that most repeaters will use the same CTCSS code. But just be aware it's there, it's a thing. And if you've programmed your radio and for the life of you can't figure out why you're not hearing anything, maybe you see on your Baofeng, whatever radio you're using, that it's receiving a signal, but you're not hearing anything, check to make sure that you've set that tone code, because I've done that a few times, banging my head against the desk, wondering what I did wrong. And that's all it was, is I just didn't put the code in, or I thought I put it in, I didn't save it and write it to the radio. So
that was Ian there. That was Ian 3 weeks ago, and I was trying to figure out, because the CHIRP program was a little bit off on a couple of the CTCSS codes, and that makes all the difference, right, between making it work perfectly and making it not work at all. So that is definitely a thing.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Now we get in the CHIRP.
Yeah. So CHIRP, and before we get into CHIRP, let's talk about the other thing, the actual cord. So the programming cord that comes for CHIRP comes in various types, but basically they're meant to plug into the mic and headphone jack on the side of your radio and into a USB on the side of your computer. They don't always have the best drivers. And so for somebody that wants to like get into these handy talkies, VHF, UHF operations and make their life a lot easier via CHIRP, it can be frustrating, as I discovered, spending like a week or so trying to get the cord to work, because the cord just wasn't sensing the phone. And as it turns out, go to MIKLOR and get the proper driver. And generally, they have it already pre-figured out for you, because they've been frustrated for years versus my days. Yeah. So, basically, you got to get your cord set up properly. Once it's able to sense your phone, you're going to be able to program it properly. I think you can start using CHIRP.
I'm curious as to why you're programming your phone with CHIRP. But
did I say my phone? Well,
I let it slide the first time. You said it the second time. I couldn't let it go.
Okay, well, I have my phone beside me, my radio. I get confused easily. Leave me alone.
That's what you want, someone who's responsible for other lives.
Yes.
Was it gear down, gear up?
Oh, well. And just to, again, with the handhelds, or even like the TYT, the base stations and such, most will have the option to come with a programming cable. Just wherever you're going to purchase from, ask them if it comes with it, because a lot will not include it, and then you have to purchase it separately. Which is why
you should only buy them from Rapid Survival, in which case you know that you're getting it.
I'm not going to say that, but
I will.
All the radios I sell do come with the programming cable already.
I would just like to point out that I have 2 Baofengs from you that did not come with the programming cable.
The Baofengs don't, but the bigger radios do. So,
yeah, a lot of the bigger radios, they actually have a specific programming cable, like the QYT here had a single prong one versus the normal 2-prong one, and so it came with its own. So,
yep. But just make sure that it's in the package, because they don't always include it.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Absolutely. So once you get it open in CHIRP, and you can actually open up the spreadsheet, for lack of a better term, or start a new spreadsheet. You can import the spreadsheet from the radio, which will set up the amount of channels it's capable of handling. And then all of a sudden, you can start actually using external resources to populate a lot of your channels if you want to program them the fast way. And
one tip before you get too far ahead: once you've downloaded the radio, so you've opened it up the first time around, you've downloaded, go up the file and save that as your base. So if you screw something up, you can just send it back to the radio, and then it's back to normal.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then, you can actually import from a data source, such as Radio Reference. And it actually specifies US or Canada. And for the most part, their information is pretty valid, but you can actually do like a proximity query, depending on how you want to do it. Or you can actually just do it via identifiers or anything else. And you can actually pull up all the repeaters in your local area, throw them into channels, throw in your basic hailing frequencies, anything else you want to do that your Baofeng will cover. And assuming it's an Industry Canada certified one, I think you're limited to ham radio frequencies, correct?
Correct, yeah. The Baofengs, as I'm sure most have heard a little while ago, were banned. That's because they were able to transmit outside of ham frequencies. So there is a new version out now, the UV5RIC, and IC stands for Industry Canada. So they've jumped through all the hoops, and they've actually received certification now. So they will not transmit off of ham frequency. They still will receive off of frequency. So those that were using it for picking up various police services or other emergency services that would transmit on analog, you can still pick them up, but you can no longer transmit on those frequencies. So that's a good thing.
Well, in the good old days, you could use it as an FRS radio, allegedly.
Yeah.
Or marine. Yeah, or marine frequencies or a bunch of other stuff, which was pretty good.
I heard that was possible.
Yeah, but these are a little more sedate now.
Yeah, they won't transmit on FRS or marine or anything. I believe they can still receive on them, though, but you're not going to be able to transmit.
Yeah. And the nice thing is about CHIRP, if you actually want to use it properly, and for example, if you're going to listen to certain frequencies and you have the option, you can actually just select to not transmit on those frequencies, which is actually kind of cool. It saves you from getting yourself into hot water. And if you are not getting the information you want from a repeater book or anything else, you can actually get radio reference, should I say. You can actually get the repeater book app. Oh, it's not going to focus, is it? Anyway.
Focus.
Anyways, it's not going to focus. So repeater book. Yeah, it's a repeater book app, and basically just download it, and it shows up and bases your location with GPS and figures out what the nearest repeaters are and gives you all the details you need, including frequencies, offsets, CTCSS codes, the whole works, and distance from your location, so you can actually have a reasonable chance of hitting it. It's another good way to program your radio.
All the time when I'm traveling. It's very, very handy.
And I've never seen it wrong yet. So
nope, I've seen it with some dead repeaters, but it's usually just because it's older repeaters that have been set up, and the next frequency down is the right one. So, but for the most part, it's bang on.
So on top of using repeaters, obviously there's the straight, what they call Simplex Operation, which is just basically talking to each other directly on a frequency, which is, hopefully a frequency that's not a new Spire repeater or anything else. And you just talk back and forth to people in other vehicles or people in the bush or whatever you want. It's a very handy size. And if you're going to get into ham radio, it's the easy entry as far as financial commitment goes. I think if you're going to get into ham radio and get your license, this is probably the best way to start versus HF because of the upfront costs. And the utility aspect is huge for sure. As far as anything else I had to say, really, what am I missing, really? Not a whole lot.
Yeah, that's kind of the basics.
So with CHIRP, I need to get the information from my radio first, and then I can start plugging information into it, then put it back into the radio. Is that right? It kind of sets up a template.
Yeah,
you go to download from the radio. It sets up the template for the radio, and then save that template and then modify it.
Gotcha.
And there's also some pre-made templates for certain things. Like for example, my QIT didn't have a template built in, or sorry, it did have a template built in, but I used a different model number, and it still worked.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to have to do some fidgeting with CHIRP, especially if you're dealing with the Chinese radios, just because of the way it is. So don't be afraid because you have a UV5R or a UV82. Try the UV5R. If it won't talk to your UV82, you select in UV82 in the drop-down, then try the 5R. Try a couple of different models under that manufacturer's list because one might actually talk to your radio.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you're not going to break anything. The worst that's going to happen is it's going to say, can't talk to the radio, and that's what you were already getting. So.
Oh, and speaking of which, I had I talk about range on these things. I had a random contact today contact me on the local hailing frequency without a repeater, and I was like, he's using a random term called soda, and I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And so I had to look it up, but it's called Summit on the Air. And what these guys do is they climb mountains, and when they get to the top of the mountain, they decide to see who they can talk to. And so this guy actually climbed to the top of a mountain on the far side of the lower mainland there, like over towards Chilliwack, Hope area. And yeah, so he's in the middle of nowhere, and he's actually climbed a mountain, and he's contacting me, and he must have been over 100 miles away. It's pretty cool. So like they do have range. These things are pretty amazing. So, but that's pretty much all I had.
Yeah, that's the basics of UHF VHF. That's where I started to get into ham, and like Ian said, the little Baofeng handhelds, for like $50-$60. you're good to go. They'll get you into it. They'll get you chatting. They'll get you comfortable with it, and then you start moving from there and grabbing some fancier handhelds if you need them. But it's a good spot to start, and UHF VHF's a good spot to get comfortable with radio operations and programming, and you're just going to go from there and expand out to HF and other things. So.
One of our erstwhile panelists and listeners mentioned a couple of things we could do with the radios that would actually amp up your reasons for traveling if need be. Eric, you're doing a CAN warn course here momentarily.
Yep,
so you could be out storm watching with one of these things reporting on the weather. And Aries, I just learned about that now. What's that all about again?
It's an emergency service on ham radio.
It's a secondary means of communication that doesn't involve that allows non-emergency frequencies to be used to pass along emergency information.
Yeah, so the amateur radio emergency service is the thing, I guess, throughout North America that ham radio people get into, and they just use the VHF, UHF for it, and it's something that will allow you to contribute to the community in case of emergency, I guess.
Yeah. That's something to look into, especially if you're looking to get into the ham thing, and you're already in the preparedness mindset, so you're going to want to know what's going on, so why not have a look at that?
Yeah. Coolio.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the best way to
basics?
What's the best way to connect two pieces of coax together in an exterior application? So I have to go under the bed of my truck or under the cab of my truck to run my antenna cable. How do I connect those in such a way that it's not going to get wet?
Duct tape.
I'm
kidding.
Okay.
You can get 100-mile-an-hour tape for nothing.
You can get Coax Sealant. So if you take two connectors, I'm assuming you've run out of cable. So
it comes with a 15-foot cable. I'm gonna have to go further than that. So I'm gonna have to make a connection.
So if you make your connection and then get some Coax Sealant, and it's like a rubber kind of sealant that's pliable, and you can wrap that around it, and then it'll stick to it and makes it weatherproof.
Does Rapid Survival sell that? I have to make an order anyways.
I do not. I should.
Yeah. Well, I also have to order a connector, and you're not going to have that either. So
I know it's not believable. Just like nobody believes that this is not a ham radio podcast. I'm not a ham radio shop.
Yeah.
Although I'm starting to maybe lean that way.
I was going to say the number of radios that I bought from you.
It's still under attack from the government, but not as heavily as other things. That's all.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Regulations there. It's only going to get worse, but
yeah. Anyway,
that's all I got.
Right.
I think that covers off the basics for UHF VHF. It's like I said, it's a good spot to start.
This is the spot. This is the starting place, right?
Totally is the starting place.
Honestly, and I'm surprised we didn't have more questions as we went along here. But
yeah,
any VHF questions, let us know, because this is the part where I think people spend most of their time, because judging by what I'm listening to, it's like there's guys that are on there every night on VHF.
Yes.
Just
there's continuous people here too on the 2-meter repeater in town here. They're very, very popular. So,
wow.
Just to screw people, I refer to it as 2-meter. Yeah. You're welcome, Ian.
Hey, thanks, buddy. Well, especially during the lockdown, there's nothing else to do too, I suppose. But
yeah, there's that too. Yeah. But even pre-COVID, I found that the 2-meter repeater in my area, at least, is usually very popular. There's usually a couple of nets throughout the week where people just meet the chat and say hello. And I found that traveling across the province as well, that I could almost always guaranteed at least get one other station on 2-meter wherever I was. So it's a good spot to start.
All right.
Well, with that, seeing as there's no questions in the live chat, maybe we'll move into the podcast challenge.
Alrighty. Try to learn some basic radio usage. So even if you have some FRS toys that some people may have just bought, get to know them really well, because the problem is when you actually need to use them, as I discovered a couple years ago during the big power outage there, trying to use them when you're under pressure or under the gun with no power to recharge them and everything else. If you want to learn how to use them or learn how to use them now. So try utilizing some controls if you've never turned it on. Learn your muscle memory on how to like change the channels or put in the privacy codes or anything else, because it's way easier to do it when you're not under stress than under the heat of the moment. And by the same token, find your max range for where you are, your like terrain, and your equipment.
Are you suggesting that we test our equipment and know how to use it?
I said test your gear for like the last 4 podcasts. I'm not going to say it this time.
I was just going to say, like 115 episodes in, I don't think we've mentioned that. Yeah.
I just did.
We've never mentioned. Why am I just hearing this now for the first time?
115 episodes in. Yeah. That's good. All right, upcoming events. So CanWarn is still doing their online course, but it is full.
And I'm still holding out for that one at the end of May, but they haven't advertised it yet.
So as soon as we hear something, we will let everybody know. All right, let's move on to shout-outs.
Oh, I guess it's just me. Dave and Delano from Canada First Ammo. So, best of luck in your retail adventure. They are a brand new retailer of guns, ammo, accessories, mild survival gear, nothing that competes with Eric. And
competition's fine. Nothing wrong with competition.
But you know what I really appreciate the fact is that they are a small business and they are matching prices with everybody else. And you know what? They're providing some stuff that nobody else can provide right now, including some gunpowders. May not be the one you prefer, but hey, I'm just happy to see another small business. And it's considering the regulation involved with like firearms, ammunition, and everything else. Brave men, like seriously, because like what a regulation like nightmare that would be.
Can only imagine.
So
where are they based out of
Calgary, it looks like. So if you can support them, Canada First Ammo, I find their prices are pretty good. So
nice. Anyway,
which I guess I should just transition right to the deal of the week, because I actually went on their website and took a look at a bunch of stuff just to see how they compared and everything else. And so I took a look. Their Maverick 88 shotgun's pretty good, but their Connect shotgun is the exact same price as anywhere else. But you might save on the PSD depending on your luck. But also support the small business, right? Because all these big box stores have had like 200% profit increases the last couple of years. Small businesses are getting killed. So if you're going to buy a shotgun, support these guys if you can.
And really, who doesn't need more shotguns?
Exactly.
Yeah. So. Don't know. Gonna have to probably buy another one.
Communists. Only communists.
Guns are bad.
All right, let's move into email and iTunes reviews.
We got a couple this week. This one from Yukon 12 Gauge. He has shotguns. You might need another one. Yukon 12 Gauge, Canada Ammo. Check him out. He got an Abri antenna. Works pretty good. Too long. I guess he got the short one. I'm wondering if there's maybe more to that was supposed to be sent and it didn't go through. But anyways, cool. Glad it works for you. If you need the longer one, get it. Yeah. Or if you need a shorter one, then maybe get a different one.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that I got the short one. So yeah, like mine didn't work, his did. So if you're going to get an Abri antenna, get the long one.
Get the long one. All right.
Yeah. Cool. There we go.
Get the long one.
We got another one here from Halsey. Says, out of curiosity, do you ham guys ever experience odd things happening to your vehicle after you install a radio in it? Apparently, two-way radios can cause issues with the CAN bus systems in some vehicles and equipment. That's a good question. Personally, I have not. I've had a little bit of a hum in my transmission on the radio, most likely from some electrical stuff like the alternator. But I haven't had any adverse effects. But I guess I could see some interference happening, but don't know if it would go as far as affecting the CAN bus. But
I have yet to transmit. Well, no, I suppose that's not true. I've used my portables, my handy talkies through the in my truck and haven't had any issues.
Yeah, I've just put an HT in my truck as well with the little mini mag base antenna that you sold there, Eric. But nothing major happened. It didn't start talking to me or anything. Like when he describes things as odd things happening. I mean, truck didn't come to life or anything. So
like I did. This isn't car-based, but when I first got my HF system all set up, I did end up screwing my computer up pretty good. But which same thing, like in the car, like your vehicle would have an onboard computer as well. So is it possible? Yeah. That was a grounding thing and me just being stupid and rushing my setup and not paying attention. But as long as you ground things properly, set things up correctly, hook it up correctly, I don't see there being an issue. But If anybody else listening has had a problem, let us know.
Cool.
All right. With that, I will bring episode 115 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Take a second, submit a review. It helps other people find us.
We do record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube for now. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That will give you an alert when we're going live. If you want to send me a message directly, you can get me at alan@prepperpodcast.ca. And eventually I do respond to my emails.
Eventually.
And if you want to reach me, you can send it to feedback@prepperpodcast.ca and it will get sent to me.
I'll find you.
Awesome.
That's what I'm afraid of.
All right, you can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com and on Gab at The Island Retreat. You can also find me on Canadian Patriot Podcast on iTunes and YouTube, and now in the Discord group called Canadian Patriot Podcast, of all things. Email us if you want an invite to it. There you can find us discussing why government waste in society has me stockpiling the Battlefangs.
Very nice. Please check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com. You can get me there on the live chat. And thanks for joining us this evening. Till next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.